On this episode of Life Stories of Extraordinary People, I'm talking with Neev Spencer. Neev is a renowned and popular TV and radio broadcaster and a real trailblazer in the UK's entertainment industry. As the first British Asian in mainstream radio, she has won multiple awards for her exceptional radio shows. Alongside her broadcasting success, Neev is an accomplished host, compere, writer and DJ, touring globally at prestigious events and venues with renowned artists like David Guetta and Hardwell. Neev is a passionate advocate for mental health, supporting various charities and awareness campaigns, including spearheading the radio industry's hugely effective Mental Health Minute, an unprecedented event which saw 300 stations coming together to raise much needed awareness. Neev is a mother of two beautiful daughters. I'm keen to know how she juggles both being mum, have time for herself, and a successful multifaceted career. I'm very much looking forward to my conversation with Neev. Neev, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Tell me, who is Neev Spencer?
Who is Neev Spencer? Well, I'm still figuring that out, I would say.
Aren't we all?
But the Neev Spencer that you know and that people in the public might know is a Neev that has been a broadcaster for 20 years now. I've been in radio for most of my career. I think my career highlights probably the biggest thing. I was the Queen of History on Kiss FM, had a big show on the station for a number of years. First British Asian to ever have a mainstream radio show, which I'm really proud about. And just trying to be a trailblazer in everything that I do.
And succeeding.
Trying.
Definitely. What did a young Neev want to be when you were setting out from a career point of view? What did you aspire to do?
Oh, that's such a great question. I always knew that I was going to be some type of broadcaster. I also really love music. So there was synergy for me in presenting, but also this huge passion for music. But I didn't quite know whether I was going to go into acting or presenting. And then I sort of fell into hospital radio, which was a really grounding experience because I used to go around the wards and I used to take requests from patients. And I think I was like 16 at the time. It was a summer job. And it really made me understand the power of music because some of these patients were on their last legs. Some of them were family members that were with loved ones who were in comas and not quite present. And the power of the song that they would select and how much that song meant to them just kind of instilled in me this real passion for music therapy and how important music is in people's lives. And for me, that was it. I knew I was going to be a radio presenter after that summer stint.
It's a tough thing to get into as an industry. You know, what was the journey for me from getting qualified, along with experience, and getting a break? Talk me through how easy or how difficult that was for you.
It was really difficult. It's not straightforward in radio. You know, you can have a fantastic demo, but that doesn't necessarily mean that someone's going to just sign you up straight away. In my case back then, I think the most difficult thing was I'm British Asian and my parents are Sikhs, you know, from Punjab in India. I'm born here. But anytime I applied to a non-Asian station, as it were, they would just say, well, we don't have an Asian show for you. So I found that a real stumbling block because I didn't want to play Asian radio. I didn't feel that that was representative of my passion and what I was into. So I think that was probably the most challenging thing, was changing people's perception about what it was to be a British Asian broadcaster. So that took a number of years. And in the end, I just decided that I think the best thing that I could do was just get on air as much as possible. And that's what I did.
So you just went, much experience as possible.
It's like, get me on air, get me comfortable with mics, technical stuff. Just let me build up those air miles, we call it in radio. And so I worked for any station that would take me on. And it was the best thing I could have done because it just gave me this breadth of experience in handling different types of formats, people, audiences. So when I did then go for the dream, which was Kiss FM, I blew them away when I had my audition. They couldn't believe it, you know.
You're so much more than just a radio presenter. Compere, DJ. Where did all that come in? Did you fit that around being a presenter and want to grow yourself into the industry by learning more? Or did you just focus on it and then the opportunities came to you through doing that?
I think it was a bit of both. I could see that if you were one type of personality on a radio station, that other things would come up. Like you'd get voiceover work, you'd be booked for DJ gigs, you'd be booked to compere and host. So it all kind of came hand in hand. And then you sort of find that you are this huge sort of, you're all these different types of entities when it comes to performance and broadcasting. But interestingly, a lot of radio presenters aren't comfortable on stage. They're much more behind the mic. But for me, I'm kind of in my element when I'm in a live setting. Hosting Wireless Festival with 100,000 people is me having the most fun of my life. So I started to see through that where I knew I was better at some things than others, or where I had bigger strengths than other people in my around me in my industry and peers. But radio was never supposed to be the thing. It was always supposed to be a stepping stone into television and presenting television.
Yeah.
And that's still a dream I'm trying to realize.
Yeah, there's massive natural energy coming off you and confidence. Have you always had that, or has that developed through just the amount of experience you clearly had? And of course, being able to stand in front of 100,000 people or perform with David Guetta and so on, you've got to have really good self-confidence to be able to do that. Is that natural to you?
I've always been really confident, even since I was a kid. I was really fortunate because you only need one cheerleader. And my mum was like, one person, but she was as mighty as 10. But interestingly, my dad was very, very much against me going down this kind of route in this career. So I had a very difficult childhood in the sense of the fact that my dad really wanted me to become a dentist, which makes me laugh, and follow in his footsteps. Can't imagine anything worse for me personally. And he was very stringent on that. This is what you're doing. You go, you get a degree, you get married, you have this job, this is what you do. But my mum could see that I was never going to go down the academic route and I was purely creative. So my mum would sneak me around and take me to theatre classes. And she just pushed all of that for me. And she just allowed me, I guess, to see that I had this gift, and she just honed it and helped me. She just nurtured it basically. And I think having that spirit and energy and belief behind me kind of made me this unstoppable force. I mean, I have more confidence than most people would have. I have too much confidence.
Yeah. Well, I think you can have too much confidence, and you can feel it. You can feel the energy, but it's reflective, right? In context of, you must make people around you feel positive, feel confident, which is a skill to have.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that are suffering with mental health. It's been talked about a lot, and you feel to me like you've been ahead of the curve. The campaigns you've spearheaded, the things you've been involved in, a lot of them voluntarily. Where's that come from? Where's the desire to be a voice within mental health? Where's that come from?
I think really it's come from my lived experience. So I, like a lot of immigrant, children born of immigrant parents, have always just kind of been on this mission to figure out who I am and where I fit in. And, I have a real sense of belonging when I'm in my motherland of India, but then I know I'm from here. So I've always been on a journey of searching to find answers. I've also been brought up by perfectionist parents and had to deal with a lot of pressures at an age which, when you're in your teens, it's hard enough to navigate that. And I suffered in my teens a lot with my mental health. And I think that really, for me, led into me wanting to do more in the sector because I experienced it and found a way through it. Yeah. I've also had some really challenging things to have to deal with and get over across my life. And I've always been able to find a way to turn some of the darkest things that have happened to me into positives. And for me, when I sit down with people who are struggling with their mental health or are going through something in their life, I think that lived experience and that authenticity that I have, and I think I'm so genuine in my want to be able to help them and hear them. It's for me, it's sort of given me a purpose. And the radio stuff was great. I was having a time of my life, like you say, supporting David Guetta and Hardwell, running around, but I really felt like something was missing. And I knew that I wanted to find a way to genuinely help people, but I didn't know how to do it. So volunteering in charity felt like the best way to be able to give a certain amount of hours of the week to the Prince's Trust or, Epilepsy Research UK or MenCap. So it made me feel like I was doing my bit. Yeah. And then my bit became much bigger and bigger and bigger. But I think it really comes from just, I know how lucky I am, My little brother has special needs. He'll always need to be cared for. And I think that has shaped the way that I am. I'm a lot more grounded and far more empathetic, I think, because of having been around someone who suffered,
Yeah, I can feel that massive empathy. We're actually filming in the JAAQ, Just Ask a Question, the social media mental health platform, where people can ask questions that may not be brave enough to family, friends, colleagues, their doctor. You mentioned when you were younger that you suffered from mental health. Did you get yourself through that? Or did you ultimately seek help, have therapy? Or did you literally just focus on how am I going to get through this?
I was really lucky because I was actually at a boarding school and it became really obvious that I was struggling. I was going through a lot of different things that were beyond normal teenage angst. There was suicidal ideation, there was concerning behavior happening at that age. And it was really because I'd found out my little brother was unwell and I felt so overwhelmed by this knowledge. I didn't really quite understand what I could do to help. And I really took it on as a real burden. You do at the age of 14, you feel like, why him? Why not me? And I think I was still struggling with my identity. I was the only Asian at my school. So it was a really confusing time, but I was fortunate enough that the school recognized and saw the signs.
That's unusual.
Very unusual. And then got me help. So I started having psychotherapy, at a young age. Didn't do much for me, to be honest, but I think it made my parents very aware something wasn't quite right, as it were. And then I kind of went on my own journey of healing, really. I mean, I started looking into holistic sort of naturopath stuff in my early 20s. I never wanted to be medicated. Anytime I went to any doctor, they would always say, you look like you've got high functioning anxiety. There's some depressive tendencies here. But, we'll just prescribe something for you. And I was like, I do not want to be medicated. I want to know how I feel, when I feel it, so I can figure it out. And that was my choice. So I've gone down a much more natural way. I have acupuncture once a week for anxiety, low mood, helps me feel relaxed. And I follow a lot of very healing practices. So I've been really fortunate. But, we know that one of the reasons that Jack is so important as a platform is statistically now a 14 to 17-year-old would have to wait for up to 4 years to be even analysed by a professional. And we know through research that if a 14-year-old does not have intervention at that age, they will carry a mental health problem with them for life. So in males, it'll be suicidal ideation and body dysmorphia and anxiety. For females, it'll be the same things, but additionally and far more dangerously, postnatal depression, which can then impact the children, because a mother who has postnatal depression won't bring up the children in the way that she should and could. And therefore, the kids struggle with anxiety and low confidence. So it's crucially important that people have those answers and those kind of professional viewpoints around them that are accessible. So it's just, for me, it's like a light bulb moment when I heard about what Jack was doing. I think it's phenomenal.
That's awesome, Neev. And in terms of what you do, both physically as well as mentally, because you touched on a few things mentally, but do you parallel fitness? Do you practice yoga, go for runs? What works for you that keeps you physically and mentally in a good place?
I do all of it. But what I've done is it's sort of like trial and error for me. We are constantly working on our mental health. Things shift, things happen. You have crisis moments. It's all about being able to see what is within your self-care and investigating that. So from one day, it'll be something as simple as, I'll just, I might decide that I'm going to go for a really long walk in an evening, listen to music. Music's massively powerful. So I have my happy playlist, go for long walks. I am really a huge advocate for sports and mental health. They just go hand in hand. Fitness will release endorphins. It will help you feel balanced. It takes you out of yourself. Anything that can take you out of yourself brings that self-awareness. It changes that physiology in that moment. So I do a lot of reformer Pilates. I find that really good and really works for me. And I know my limits, whether it's digitally, boundaries with friends, it's boundaries with family. I know my triggers. And I think it's about being in touch with yourself enough that you can actually recognize what you need and then do what you need.
Take the action.
You know, take those holidays,
Yeah.
turn your phone off, you know, eat better food. I'm more low sugar than I am anything
Yeah.
else. That helps my mood.
Yeah.
So I feel like you kind of end up sort of becoming your own coach, you know?
Yeah. So right now, you're Magic FM.
Yes.
And all sorts of other things that go on around that. I'd love to talk to you about some of the people you've spoken to, because you've spoken to Tom Cruise, you've spoken to royals, all sorts of Hollywood actors, actresses. Who have you found the most interesting?
My gosh, I've spoken to so many over the years. I think someone that really stands out to me is Rihanna. Rihanna and I spoke a number of years ago now, and she'd just gone through an extremely disturbing incident and time while dating Chris Brown. And I remember when we sat down together, her team were really, really concerned about us discussing certain things and topics. And as you know, it's really difficult to dance the line, you know, when you sit down and have a conversation with someone, because you want to respect their boundaries. But I also knew that she'd come in to promote a song that was about domestic abuse and had just gone through it herself. I'd just come out of a relationship, you know, a really toxic relationship myself. So I found a way to be able to broach the subject in a really respectful, very authentic way. And she just wanted to talk about it and talk about it and talk about it. And I'll never forget, like, she was holding my hand throughout the whole interview. And then I had henna on my hands because I just come back from India. And literally like a month later, Rihanna went out and got henna all over her hands. And I was like, that's because of me.
You influenced her.
But no, I think, you know, also sitting down with, you know, Ed Sheeran, or I had a long chat with James Arthur about mental health at this big mental health event. You know, when you get to sit down with someone who is an artist or creative person, or someone who's really known, and they open up and share something so personal about their journey with you, it's beautiful. It's a real, like, there's a real trust in that, you know.
Yeah. But
so
your skill from an empathetic point of view must be, they probably really enjoy talking to you because you're genuinely interested.
Yeah,
you know? Like
I think
the whole thing with Rihanna, you made an impression.
Yeah, I think it's a superpower. I feel like it becomes a superpower.
What would you say is your greatest strength? Amongst many.
Amongst many. That very thing, being able to connect with people on a real one-to-one, really important level.
Yeah. And your biggest weakness?
My biggest weakness, that I'm a perfectionist.
Yeah, which also drives you from a positive point of view, but it's managing it, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Has that held you back? Have you got
example?
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I've lost some huge opportunities in my life. You know, it's a mixture of being a perfectionist and ego. So my biggest thing spiritually, because I'm really into spirituality, is ego death. So it's me finding a way to be able to be the best that I can be, hone that confidence, that superpower, but also be able to put my ego to one side. And in my industry, because everything's so competitive, it's really difficult. You don't get a job, someone else gets it over you. You can feel really rejected. There's so much rejection in my industry. And it's this sort of being able to have a real faith and trust that your journey is going the way it's meant to. Yeah. And letting stuff go, genuinely letting it go without holding that grudge of bitterness or resentment. And that's taken me years to get to this point where I can say, oh, really? My agent will say, you didn't get it, by the way. We've been working on it for weeks, you know, or you didn't get it, Neev. And I'll go, that's fine, because it's not for me.
Whereas a younger version of you would have been...
burn the house down. I'd be furious. I'd be like ranting at anyone. I can't believe she got it over me. I'd be so angry. And then that's it. There's this cycle of like, you know, why me? You know, this victim thing that we all do. It's just naturally inherent in us. It is far easier to be negative, to be angry, to be bitter, than it is to wake up and be happy and to be grateful and joyous. It's so much easier to be in the dark than to be in the light, you know. And I think...
Which makes no sense, and yet we're all consumed by it. The inner voice of...
The saboteur.
You have to fight it every day, right?
The saboteur in all of us. You know, we get those moments where, you know, I will still, when I do stand-up, sometimes I stand on stage and, you know, this voice will be like, what are you doing? you're rubbish. Like this, especially when you're high anxiety as well, because your mind plays tricks on you.
Yeah.
So I think this is why these small mindful practices, these grounding practices, learning to connect with your inner voice, honing that just becomes such a skill.
Yes.
And nothing can take you down.
No. Awesome. How would you define success? Because you've had a number of different things you can point to in your career that have been successful. And I imagine the answer is different from a young Neev to now, but how would you define success?
So for a long time, success for me was my dad saying, you've done it. Or
validation.
I approve of you, which just didn't happen until I met the Queen. And then he told everyone, calling, guess what? But I think, and awards over the years, it's really strange. Like I'd be awarded an award, I'd be standing on stage, I'm getting this award, and I'm going through the motions of art. Thank you so much for this award. It really means a lot. And in my brain, I'm just going, wow, that's not enough. I need more. And that was from being brought up by my dad and having all that pressure of a family that gave up everything to come here. And we're sending you to the best school and you better do really, all this pressure. And it was really only when I had my children that I started to change what success really meant. I started to see things differently. Was it success enough that I could get pregnant, that I could have a baby, that I could bring that baby up beautifully and be healthy in my own mental health? Those small wins became huge. And I think for me now, success, I climbed the 10th highest mountain in the world in March, and I am not an outdoorsy person. I got my hair curled. I got my nails done. I thought that was needed. I've never done a 5K or a 10K, or when I got my hiking boots, I was like, wow, what do we need special socks? Everyone was like, yes. So I was a total amateur. But that 5-day trek in Nepal was the most life-changing, experience of my life, the most transformative thing I could have ever done. And I did it in my best friend's name, who I lost in my mid-20s. She died of drugs and alcohol addiction. And I've always wanted to honor her. And I had this drive, and I was raising money for this human trafficking charity in Nepal. And when I got to base camp, like for me, that was it. That was everything. That was me saying that this is it. This to me is what success really felt like. This community spirit of pushing yourself beyond your boundaries for something so important. So yeah, but obviously that little voice went, what's next?
Yes.
Everest Base Camp.
Yeah. You've articulated that so well. You mentioned as well, mum, 2 gorgeous girls.
Thank you.
Which, as you say, is life-changing. How do you juggle your work? Because it's so multifaceted, right? And as well as being time for yourself, your Pilates and being a parent, how do you do it?
I mean, I'm spinning plates, and to be honest with you, Johnny, they're smashing all over the floor. They're smashing everywhere all the time. I just make it look really, really good. No, I think, I'm fortunate. I have good support. I've got very active parents who play a big role in my kids' life. So the summer holidays, I'm not consumed with looking after the children all the time. I probably spend most of what I earn on childcare, to be quite honest with you. And that gives me my sanity. I know what I need for my time. I know what I need for my peace. And I make sure that I create that. And, the girls know, like, I'll take them to Pilates, sit them in the waiting room on their devices. That's their screen time for the day. And they'll say, I heard my eldest saying to my little one the other day, this is what makes mummy shout less. I was like, yes, it does. So I think there's a clear understanding for me, and I think the people around me, of what I need to achieve, my peace, which is what is everything. Yeah. But, we never manage it all. And the mum guilt, the dad guilt, it's always there. We can always do more. But I think, it's being able to still follow your passion. That's, I think, what is really the key to all of it. And that's the key to the juggle is, what are you juggling? Just make sure that every single plate that you are juggling is important and needed.
Has purpose.
Yeah, has purpose. And get rid of the other ones.
I can see that's just literally 100% of you. Everything's purposeful, mission-led. And you enjoy it as well, right? You can feel it. I've loved talking to you, Neev. I could talk to you for a lot longer, but got to stop there. But thank you so much for being so open and sharing, and I loved it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Pleasure. Thank you.